muted due to my mic not registering on Twitch. So I'm just going to jump on Twitch really quick and make sure that my stream is actually going. Oops. And we'll see here in just a second. Yep, okay. So my stream's actually working this time. So this one's not going to be muted. Alright, so we're on Chapter 8. And Chapter 8 is basically covering VLAN access ports, trunk ports, and voice VLANs and different things like that. So we're going to be using the whiteboard on the left. We're going to be discussing different types of things with the 8021Q, which is the type of encapsulation used for trunks, and the VLAN ranges, as well as some information about the tag in your VLANs and the Ethernet frames and how they tag. So first thing, I've set up two different networks. So these bottom two left PCs over here, I'm just going to go ahead and select fill color. We'll do blue. So these over here, oh, why is it not filling fill color? Oh my gosh, I selected white. Blue. Okay. So these two PCs are 192.168.10 network, and then we'll do orange for these ones. These over here are on the 192.168 20 network. We'll go back to blue. This one is also in the 192.168.10 network, and then we'll go back to orange and this one. So these switches, no, that's not what I want to stop. Still getting used to some of the controls in Packet Tracer. Okay, so these two switches are not configured at all yet. It's because we're going to be discussing how you actually configure access ports. So this one is port 1, port 2, port 3, port 1, port 2, port 3. So we're going to go into the switch. And we're going to pull up this switch as well. So we're going to have this one here and this one over here. So we're going to go ahead and configure the access ports. So first thing, to create a VLAN, you can either go into the interface, so I'll do it two different ways so you guys can see the difference. I'll go into interface, I'm going to do interface range, because I'm going to be configuring two ports here, 0, 1 to 2, FA. And I'm going to do switch port mode access, then switch port access, and then you tell it what VLAN you want it in. I know we've done this before, but none of the other videos were supposed to actually cover this yet. This chapter is actually where we go to start actually configuring VLANs. So I'm going to put VLAN 10 for this one. And you can see this VLAN doesn't exist, so it's going to go ahead and create it. But let's say I was here and I went to VLAN 20. This would automatically create the VLAN, and then you can name it. So I'm going to name this one users 2. I'm going to go into VLAN 10. I'm going to name that one users 1. So we've got our users VLANs created, and I'm going to configure the last interface 02. I'm going to do switch port mode access and switch port access VLAN 20. Now we need to, so I'm actually going to configure, instead of configuring trunk ports, I'm going to configure access ports where trunks should be, and I'll show you why in just a second. So we're going to use gig 01. I'm going to do switch port mode access. I'm going to do switch port access VLAN 10. And I'm going to also put another connection and do interface GI0. No, I put the wrong gigabit interface on there, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, 02. Sorry about that. Gig 02. So we'll go to interface GI02, switch port mode access, switch port access VLAN 20. So we have both our VLANs on where our trunk should be connecting to the other switch, and that's going to allow us to send data between the 10 network to the 10 network and the 20 network to the 20 network. So we're going to go into the other switch and configure the same thing. interface GI 01, switch port mode access, switch port access VLAN 10. Interface GI 02, switch port mode access, switch port access VLAN 20. So it created both VLANs that way, but I'm going to go ahead and name the VLANs. So 20 is users 2. Oops, I need to put a name there. Name users 2, and VLAN 10 is name users 1. And then I'm going to configure the interfaces themselves. So interface fast Ethernet 0. We'll go ahead and do range for this one. Range FA 01 to 2. We're going to do switch port mode access and switch port access VLAN 20. And then we're going to go into the final one, 03. Switch port mode access, switch port access VLAN 10. Alright, so since we're looking at this, I'm going to go into PC0 here, and if I've already configured the IP addresses, so this is 10.1, this is 10.2, this is 10.3. I'm going to go ahead and try to ping across. So I'm going to go into command prompt, ping 192.168.10.2. Did I configure something incorrectly? Well, that's embarrassing. Huh. So this is 10.1, 10.2, so it must be on the switch. So go to switch 0. Oops. Show VLAN. FA02 should be interface FA0/2 config T. I don't think I configured all the interfaces over here. I don't think the range command actually worked, or maybe I just messed up. So switch port mode access, switch port access VLAN 10. So now if we do exit and we do a show VLAN, you can see 1 and 2 are in the same VLAN now, so it should be able to ping across. And I have to put port 3 into interface FA03. I have to put that one in. Switch port access 20 and VLAN 20. So VLAN 20. So type end, show VLAN. So now we have all of our ports in the correct thing. So now we should be able to ping across. So we're going to try there. Alright, and we get a reply, so we're able to ping PC2. And we're going to ping across, and we're able to... So what this is doing, the top one is VLAN 10, this top link here. So this is sending all across the VLAN, it's sending across this top link, and then it's going over here. Now if we try to ping a 20 VLAN on the other side, 20.1, it's not going to work. Even though we have this link up, VLANs are separated by what's known as broadcast domains. So broadcast domains are broken up. They're basically layer 3 sections. So this can only talk to something in its own network, in its own broadcast domain, which is currently the 10 network. So it can talk to 10.1, 10.2, 10.3, but it can't reach out to any of the 20 IP addresses. And you need a router for that. And routing we'll discuss later. But if we jump to PC1 over here, and we go to desktop terminal, we ping 192.168.20.1, we are able to ping across. So this is 20.3, it went to this bottom link over here, and then it went all the way down to 20.1. So we're able to get other replies. Now, the reason why this isn't efficient is because, let's say you have 50 VLANs. You're not going to be able to take up 50 ports to create access ports to make links all the way across. So you're going to have to make something called a trunk. So instead, we're going to configure the top one. So go config T, interface GI 0/1. We're going to do the switch port, so no switch port access VLAN 10. We're just going to make it switch port mode trunk. So you can see that it went changed state to up, down. That's because the other side doesn't have the same configuration. So we have to go to the other side and do the same thing. So config T, interface GI 0/1. no switchport mode, no switchport access VLAN 10, and switchport mode trunk. So went down up again, and if we exit out to end, we do a show IP interface brief. You can see all of our ports are up, as well as our gig ports. So now whenever we go into, and we're just going to shut down the other link because we don't need it anymore. So shut. So now we type in show IP interface brief. You look here, gig 02 is administratively down, and that's because we went in and shut it down automatically. This VLAN 1 is called an SVI, Switch Virtual Interface. This is automatically created and it's shut down by default, so you have to actually go in and enable it. So that's why that one's administratively down. Now, did I shut down the wrong port? No? Okay, for some... Oh, okay. I guess whenever I did this, it flopped them. Okay, that's weird. Yeah, gig 02 is up top. Just going to delete it. We don't need it. Okay, so we just have the one. So you see that these are orange right now. So what this does is it has something called spanning tree, and it takes 15 seconds before a link can start forwarding. And we'll talk about spanning tree in the, believe the next chapter. So once these links are up, we'll be able to ping across again. So there are also other things you can do. So let's say for trunks. Let's say if we want to create, I shouldn't have deleted that link. If you do switchport mode and then you hit question mark, you can see you've got access, trunk, and then dynamic. So we haven't used dynamic yet. So we're going to type dynamic. And you hit question mark again, and it'll tell you your options. You have auto and desirable. So trunks can automatically link up without the use of hard configuration. If you set it to auto, so what it does with auto, if the other side is configured for an access port, it'll automatically become an access port. If it's configured for a trunk, it'll automatically become a trunk. But it doesn't start that initiation. So if both sides are configured as auto, it's not going to try to force the other side. They're both just going to default to access ports. So auto, it goes to access ports if they're both auto and if the other side is an access port. But desirable, if you have one side desirable and one side auto, it will no negotiate and dynamic. So this is something, a bug in packet tracer. You have to actually, once you've configured it a certain way, it won't let you change it. So I'm just going to go to interface FA04, switchport mode, dynamic, desirable. So we're going to make a desirable port on Fast Ethernet 04 on switch 1, and on the other side we're going to go into the interface FA04 as well. Oops. And we're going to do switchport mode dynamic auto. So now if we pull up this link and I go to FA04 to FA04, you can see it went down to up. It's just doing some matching on the other side. And if you do show IP interface brief, you can see that 4 is up. It's currently in a process where it's not forwarding frames though. You can see with these orange links. So let's go to show interface trunk. So if you look at interface trunk, it'll tell you what type of mode your port, the port your trunks are on. So FA04 and gig 01, how they are configured. So one's configured to auto, the other one's configured to on. The encapsulation type, which we're going to talk about in just a second. The status, which is set into trunking, and then the native VLAN. If you also look down here, we're about to jump to the whiteboard. You can see the VLANs allowed are 1 to 1005. VLANs allowed and activated. So 1 to 1005 is the number, is the range of the VLANs you can create. So you can create between the number 1 and 1005. So allowed and active. So 1 is created by default and it's already configured and active. 10 is created and so is 20. So both of these are being used. So they are both down here setting up their forwarding so they can actually forward traffic. so they're both set up and they're allowed to use those VLANs on these ports. And down here it talks about spanning tree. We're going to get to that next lesson, but I'll just explain it really quickly. So gig 0 FA04 is set to none, and 1, 10, and 20 are set to forwarding, and that's on gig 01. So what a spanning tree does, so let's say you had a broadcast, right? Let's say a new switch comes on, or a new PC gets connected, and it's MAC address, and someone's trying to ping it, and they're trying to find that MAC address, and they can't find it, so they're going to send out a broadcast throughout every single port. Well, if you do that, you're going to get a loop here. It's just going to keep forwarding loops, keep forwarding, it's going to keep looping with the MAC address. But so what spanning tree does is it blocks one port so it can't create a loop, because loops can really fuck up your network. They can shut down an entire network, so you gotta really focus on making sure that that's not done. Spanning tree is turned on by default, so you really don't have to worry about that for the most part, but sometimes you'll want to go in and configure spanning tree to specific settings. And we're going to talk about those settings and stuff later. Okay, so we're going to jump to the whiteboard really quick. So up here I've got VLAN ranges 1 to 4094, but on this switch it says 1 to 1005. That's because some switches only have the standard range, and then other switches have the extended range, which allows you to use all your total range of 4094 VLANs. And while we're over here, we'll go ahead and talk about 8021Q. So 8021Q is the type of encapsulation that is done whenever you're trunking. So what it does is it has a destination, has a source, and then it has the tag. So tag has the type, priority, flag, and the VLAN ID. We're only going to be really worried about the VLAN ID right now. So what it does is it inserts the VLAN ID into here, and it forwards it across. So that way, whenever it gets to the other side, so if this one goes to VLAN 1, it gets over here, it unencapsulates that data. It says, okay, this is in VLAN 1, and then it sends it to the appropriate port. And that's basically what VLAN that's what VLAN tagging is known as. So it just inserts the VLAN into the VLAN ID in the tag portion of the Ethernet frame. So the native VLAN that we're talking about right here. So native VLANs are, if a port does not have a tagged VLAN on it, it automatically assigns it to the native VLAN, which is 1. So the native VLAN would send something, if it's new information that doesn't have anything on it, it would send it across. It's untagged, so it says, okay, this must be in VLAN 1. You have to keep these both the same, because if you have one is native VLAN 1 and the other one is 2, whenever you send it across, this will automatically assume it's in VLAN 2 when actually it originated from VLAN 1. So this would be considered VLAN hopping, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to send information to the incorrect VLAN. Okay, so I believe we've covered most of this stuff. Let's see. We'll do a show spanning tree for a second. So show spanning tree, you can see here it's got designated, alternate, root, and designated. We're going to talk about that later, but this is just showing you that one port, FA04, is in a blocking state, so it's not going to forward traffic. Alright, so we're going to look at some more information. If you do a show int status, it'll tell you the VLAN that the port is in, if it's connected, the duplex and speed, which we've already talked about before, and also the port itself, as well as the bandwidth type speed. Final thing we're going to talk about today is actually, let me grab the book. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. I'm just going to flip through really quick and see if there's any big standing out things we've learned creating VLANs. Oh, we'll take another look at one more command. So before we move on to the voice VLANs. Make sure it's going through just a little bit more. Alright, so we're going to use one more command. So if you come here and you type show interfaces, well, we just lost the command. Oh, and then you put the interface you want to go to, so gig01, and you type switch port. It'll give you a bunch of information about this. So it tells you that it is enabled. It's in trunk mode. It's operating as a trunk. Type of encapsulation, negotiating on the trunk. So this one, it isn't negotiating. We'll take a look at actually FA04 to see the difference. So this one, you can see its administrative mode is auto, and the negotiation of the trunk is on. Native VLAN, and then some other information, that private VLAN stuff that we haven't covered. And I don't even think if private VLANs are covered in the CCNA. I'm not 100% sure, so we might not even get to this information. But that is just another troubleshooting thing you can use, a show interfaces, the interface, and then switch port, and it'll just give you more detailed information about that port. So the final thing we're going to do is we're going to add a phone to this mix. So we're going to go to in devices, is it? Yeah, IP phone. So something I noticed yesterday about IP phone, because I was trying to figure it out. Out of all the devices, if you click on it and look at the physical back of the phone, you can see here there is a power jack. You actually have to physically drag it on before this phone will work, and I think it's the dumbest thing ever. I don't know why they did this. Let's see if we can zoom in and have this actually read. Alright, so if you zoom in, you can actually look at two different ports here. So one is the port to the switch, and the other is the port to the PC. So whenever I put this connection, we're gonna go from the switch. We're gonna do the way these phones work is the switch will plug into the back of the phone, and then the phone will plug into the PC with another Ethernet cable. And you can use one port for both a switch, for both a phone and a PC. So I'm going to plug this PC port, take it off the switch, plug it into the PC port on the phone, and then I'm going to go to the switch, go back to FA03, and I'm going to plug it into the switch port on the phone. So now we've got both of these devices. It's kind of, yeah, there we go. Both of these devices connected to each other. But you have to actually have a voice VLAN before this phone will work. If you put it in the data VLAN, you're going to have some problems. So we're going to go to config T. We're going to go to interface FAs. Well, first we're going to create it. We're going to create VLAN 30. We're going to name it VoIP for voice over IP. That's what that stands for. And this is used for phones. You don't have to name it that. You can name it whatever you want. And I'm going to go to interface FA03. I'm going to do switch port voice. If you hit a question mark, it's just asking for the VLAN for voice traffic. 30? What? Oh, I need to put VLAN. Sorry. And then you put the number. So spanning tree is going on, so this port's going to take a minute before it'll actually start forwarding. But now we've got our phone connected. I don't like that there isn't a way to actually configure the phone's IP address and things like that. It's trying to pull it automatically, and I mean, you can mess around on the phone, but you can actually hit, wow, I didn't even know that would work. Alright. Huh, okay, that's kind of cool. I don't know how to delete it though, so none of these buttons work. So this is a very non-functioning phone that they've got here. I don't even know what any of these buttons do. Okay, but that's pretty much all you can really do on a phone. You can't really do too much, but that is how you configure a voice VLAN. Alright, I believe that covers everything for this video. I'm going to upload this one in place of the one where my mic was unregistered to, and then we're going to continue on to the next chapter next time. So thanks for watching.